Please don't turn me off.
So every year for Valentine's, I get on here and do a relationship video. Have you ever been in a relationship where everything just seems so right? Being with that person just makes you feel so happy. And then next thing you know, yelling and screaming. Things get so bad in that relationship that both parties just go their own separate ways, hating each other. If you have not experienced this yet, I'm sure you've seen it at some point, or you will be seeing it at some point. See, I've always been the person that a lot of my friends come to for advice, and they share a lot of their personal relationship problems, so I've heard a lot of stuff. I don't run around just putting your business out in the streets. You know, from time to time I do tell people about your problems, but rest assured, because everybody that I told your problems to, I told them not to tell anybody else, so we're totally okay. See, relationships don't go from good to bad overnight. Normally, they're gradual. Sometimes it's very sudden, but normally it's a gradual progression. The analogy I came up with is the burning house. We tend to err in our thinking sometimes due to our situation. So at what point do you realize, hey, this house, which represents the relationship, at what point do you say, this house is on fire, I need to get out of here now? What point do you start making that realization? See, how it works is you move into the house with this other person, and then when problems start, it's like smoke. And then the smoke slowly starts to fill the house, and it's so gradual, nobody in the house really notices the smoke. But then the next thing you know, there's a 4-alarm blaze, and because the smoke has just risen so gradually, you don't even really notice that your house is on fire, yet everybody that walks by outside is walking by just like, dude, the house is on fire, get out. That's the analogy. There normally are some signs. God gave you a brain, God gave you a heart. Don't attempt to put your heart in your mind's position. I've mentioned that before in a previous video, but I'm serious when I say that. I've also mentioned setting up boundaries and limitations. It's a good idea to know under what circumstance you're gonna get out of this relationship. So, you know, when I had my last girlfriend back in the 80s, He-Man and She-Ra were pretty popular at the time. Thundercats were now getting a little hot. But no, seriously, my last relationship, I told my girl, listen, if you do A, B, or C, we'll work through it. But if you do X, Y, or Z, it's a wrap. See, if you tell your boyfriend or your girlfriend, hey, if you go off and kiss somebody else, we're done. And they go off and kiss somebody else, and you don't do nothing, what kind of a message do you think you're sending? There's a very thin line between forgiveness and being somebody's doormat. And from the relationships that I've observed, most of us haven't even drawn that line. If they do A, B, or C, you gotta be a person of your word and stick to it and work it out. But if they do X, Y, or Z, same thing goes. You have to be a person of your word and dump them. There has to be some kind of consequence. Don't say, I'm gonna dump you if you do this, and they do it and you don't dump them. Guys, pay attention, but girls, right now, let me talk to you for just a second. Relationships are meant to be awesome, okay? Abusive relationships aren't so awesome, and they should not be taken lightly. I'm not even just talking about physical abuse. I'm talking about verbal, mental, psychological, but especially physical abuse. Unless you're coming at him with a knife, he has no excuse to harm one delicate hair on your fragile little body. Because if you got with this person months or years ago and they were perfect, and suddenly now they're giving you some kind of abuse, that's a good indication that there's been some kind of character development. And I know a lot of the girls that I've known over the years that stay with guys that beat them, the girls hang on to this bubblegum picture or the vision that the person used to be, when in reality, if it wasn't constant abuse when you guys first met, but there's some form of abuse there now, there's a good chance that you're holding on to the idea of what that person used to be and not what they are now. Do you still need to be in that house if it's on fire? The last point I want to touch on really quickly is not something that I hear talked about often, but definitely something I've heard come up a number of times. You know, you'll break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and you'll be driving down the street, and you'll look up and you'll be like, me and so-and-so used to eat there. Before you know it, everything in town reminds you of that person, and it gets to the point to where it hurts so bad you just want to level the entire city, just erase all the memories and get away from the pain. Trust me, I've been there. It is a really uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes it can hurt so much to where you start to feel sick. I met a girl a little while ago who every time she breaks up from a relationship, she moves. So when I met her, she had moved 4 times. Some people do this because they still feel they're too close to their ex and that they might cave in and just get back with them. I've seen some people do it just because they want to make a bold statement and underline it and send it home. Peace, I'm out. You don't have to pick up everything you own and relocate to another part of the world just to start a new chapter in your life, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck. If you ever find yourself breaking up from a boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, whatever, and you feel like you have to get out of Dodge, my advice to you is to embrace that pain. I know it might sound crazy, but when you embrace that pain and you make the right decisions, it exercises your willpower, it exercises your patience, your decision-making skills. All these things get exercised at once, and I know it's not gonna be a fun ride, but the more you exercise them, just like the human body and the muscles, the stronger they'll get. Think about it. All right, that's it. Y'all have a good Valentine's Day. If you don't have a boyfriend, don't have a girlfriend, don't have that fiance or whatever, and you're single like me, think about that person that you've been taking for granted. Tell them you love them. Give them some chocolate. Give them a flower. Give them a balloon, something. If it's moms, if it's pops, whoever it is you've been taking for granted, tell them you love them.